accessing email accounts belonging to Colin Powell, as well as military officers and celebrities. He is now serving a 7-year prison sentence in Romania. Explaining the purpose behind his hacking, which was conducted merely by guessing the security answers to people's email accounts to obtain their passwords, Guccifer's manifesto is, quote, a potpourri of conspiracy theories about the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, the 1997 death of Princess Diana, and alleged plans for a nuclear attack in Chicago in 2015. And whether you believe it to be the work of a conspiracy or a plot crafted by a group like ISIS, the fact is that Chicago has been a terror target since 9/11. Earlier this summer, the FBI warned that ISIS were planning to target major US cities after the terror group put out a series of chilling tweets identifying the Old Republic building in Chicago as being in the crosshairs. Guccifer also makes another intriguing comment during the New York Times interview, quote, this world is run by a group of conspirators called the Council of Illuminati, very rich people, noble families, bankers and industrialists from the 19th and 20th century. Of course, a far cry from the original 18th century Bavarian Illuminati, the modern incarnation largely centers around claims by hip-hop artists and other members of the entertainment industry that they're part of an occult secret elite that controls the planet. In name-checking the Illuminati, Guccifer is most likely making the general point that global events are coordinated and managed to some extent by elite banking families, just as they have been down the centuries. But what's your view on Guccifer's comments about the Illuminati and a nuclear attack on Chicago in 2015? Let me know in the comments below. Check out the other videos, subscribe to the channel. I'm Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com.
All right, let's go now live to London. We're skipping this network break coming up. And at the bottom of the hour, I'll go directly to Tony, Richard, Ryan, David, Wesley, and others. I appreciate you guys holding, but this is emergency news, obviously, right here. Paul, you've got the Hart-Rudman Commission that wrote the plan for the post-Free America police state with the RAND Corporation on record, saying nukes will hit these cities and that they'll totally take our rights, as an alert to their own mid-level minions, obviously. Or you can elaborate on why you think they do it. Now you've got the missing nukes and just people freaking out at the base. I mean, there were guns out at Dyess, folks. This was unbelievable. We've got that going on. No one ever said we were liars about that, you notice, because it happened. They might have been dummy nukes or something. I don't know, but they were told they were nukes. They weren't going to Pentax. So, Paul, looking at Guccifer coming out, who did get into all these top people's emails. I mean, they admitted this was all real. He really did this and more. And I know they claim he's the only person operating under that name. I don't think that's the case from what I've studied and seen. Obviously, it's now coming out that Snowden is not one person, but a consortium group. And I'm not even sure exactly who he's working for, but that's another subject. This cloak and dagger stuff gets into that. We're trying to reveal the cloak and dagger to people so that the tricks don't work anymore. The way to beat this system is to expose it and to bring in a more honorable, chivalry-based system, which is more secure for everybody. You know, true security, true peace, true prosperity. Paul, what's your gut on all this?
Well, what's interesting about it, Alex, is, you know, it came out in this New York Times article, which came out last night. They visited the Transylvanian prison in which he's serving this 7-year sentence. And he basically said to them, look, before I answer any questions, I'm going to read out this manifesto as to why I did this hacking and what the purpose of it was. So he obviously expected them, at least to some extent, to reprint some of his manifesto because it was a condition of the interview itself. That's what it says in the article. But all they afford to it is one dismissive paragraph in which they mention, you know, 9/11, the death of Princess Diana, and the alleged plot plan to attack Chicago with a nuclear weapon in 2015. So obviously this was and they talk later about how he makes extensive notes about all these plots, which obviously he's garnered some knowledge of.
Yeah, no, obviously this is where people still fall for it. It's the New York Times, just like Snowden tried to talk to them first, and all they did was tattle on him. You go to the CIA, you go to the New York Times, that's who they are. You go to the Carnegie Endowment for Peace. That's really, they're above the CIA, above the State Department. You go to this trust, and you expect them to then make you credible. It's the opposite. And this is how the trolls are. They're on Infowars.com freaking out about this right now, and on YouTube saying we're liars. We're reporting on the New York Times. They're saying we made this up. See, Paul? Because they're not really trolls. We've tracked some of the IP addresses before. These are coming out of government servers, Paul. They don't even, and corporate servers, they don't even try to hide it now. Just like the Obama administration guys saying, the public's dumb, we lied to them. It's a plan to rip them off. They just hope people are dumb and don't check. They'll probably say that this, Guccifer guy, or Guccifer, doesn't even exist as well. The point is, this may stop a Chicago nuke attack, and then we don't get thanked for that. Or Guccifer doesn't get thanked. Instead, they'll just say he doesn't exist. But it's only the public being so weak-minded that allows this to happen.
Well, I mean, the screenshot from the New York Times is in the video. I will add it to the article with the link to the New York Times. So the time for
that's not good enough. I'll just call you racist, and that'll shut you down. I don't need facts. I don't need to be intellectual. Racist.
That's going to do it.
Yeah, I just need to know one word. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
But again, the concern is he's had access to the emails. Rockefeller family, Bush family, Council on Foreign Relations, FBI, Secret Service, aides to Bill Clinton, George Tenet, Richard Armitage, John Negroponte. The list goes on and on. Secret Service, Romanian intelligence, that's where he was arrested.
He breaks in, he has the intel, he gives it to them, and they don't want the story of the century with a confirmed hacker that's leaked nothing but truth. No, it's just, he says Chicago's going to get nuked.
Yeah, it's dismissed in a sentence. It's completely ridiculous. I mean, that's why we exist, to pick up on that kind of thing and make it into a story.
Just like Forbes last week goes, we were in a meeting with the media, with the CDC. We're supposed to cover up what appears to be Ebola cases. Gucciardi went up to Dallas, Paul, and talked to more doctors. And they're like, that's definitely going on. They're covering up Ebola cases. And they're scared. They go, we don't like covering it up because we're going to be liable. We think the government will leave us holding the bag. Now, I'm not saying it's pandemic and we're all dead, but clearly, Paul, there is Ebola here and there, and they're covering it up. I mean, it's not fun to live in a country where the media and everybody goes along with lies. This is not making us secure. It's making us insecure, Paul.
And we're not even going to know if they are covering it up, to what extent, because the media's agreed not to report on any of the cases. There's actually a flight that went out of Gran Canaria. Remember when those potential Ebola victims, they had Ebola symptoms, washed up on a beach in Gran Canaria, these African illegal immigrants. They were just dumped out on the beach. Everybody freaked out.
Yeah, vomiting with blood running out their rear ends, yeah.
Yeah, it turns out there was a flight that went from Gran Canaria, I think it was to Andrews Air Force Base. So I'm looking into that now, if that was a secret transfer for potential treatment of Ebola victims, which if it's the case, the media is not going to report on it because they've been sworn to secrecy.
All right, get back into the nukes. I've been interrupting you because this gets me so upset and so excited in a bad way. Start over, Paul, with, again, for folks that just joined us, New York Times gets what's in the emails of the world elite, Rockefellers, you name it, nuke Chicago, and the idiots at the New York Times just think it's all a big joke.
Yeah, this is Guccifer, or Guccifer, who was a hacker for several years, very prominent over the past several years, out of Transylvania. He lived in Romania. He hacked into the personal email accounts. Technically, he didn't even hack. He gathered information from the internet and guessed the password. So he wasn't even breaking some of those hacking laws. Obviously, he got in illegally, but he just guessed the security answers and the passwords. Bush family, he was the guy who released the Bush self-portraits. He also hacked the Rockefeller family, members of the Council on Foreign Relations, aides to Bill Clinton, FBI, Secret Service members, George Tenet, former CIA, Richard Armitage, John Negroponte. So he hacked all these accounts. There was actually a scandal with Colin Powell, who he also hacked, where this Romanian politician was sending nude photos of herself to Colin Powell. So he had to come out and admit that he'd been hacked and then deny that he was having an affair with her. So this was all confirmed that he was getting into these accounts. He was arrested in Romania back in January. He was indicted in absentia in Virginia back in June. Now he's in prison for 7 years in Romania. He came out to the New York Times, said, look, I'll do an interview with you, but only if you print this manifesto, this long manifesto that he read out before he agreed to any questions. In that manifesto was alleged plot to attack Chicago with a nuclear weapon in 2015. But it was dismissed by the New York Times in a paragraph as some kind of paranoid conspiracy theory alongside the death of Princess Diana and 9/11.
And let me say this. Let me say this to Guccifer. We want your manifesto. We will print it in whole. Infowars.com is ready. So you just, I know they probably aren't letting him get info out because they're all scared of what he's got. You know, we've got Romanian listeners that have sent us Bilderberg footage and stuff from Istanbul, Turkey. In fact, we have that guy's phone number. Jacobson has it. We ought to get a hold of our Romanian sources and deputize him as a reporter and send him in if he can get in. Of course, they may have only let the New York Times in to see him because they knew he'd spin it. This is outrageous, Paul. Paul, you want to get on a plane? I'll pay for it. You ready to go to Transylvania, buddy? They say it's beautiful.
Maybe that's something we can talk about.
Well, you're only 3 hours away. Saddle up. Let's go.
But the only thing they actually printed out of his manifesto was the quote, "This world is run by a group of conspirators called the Council of Illuminati, very rich people, noble families, bankers and industrialists from the 19th and 20th century." So they reprinted that part of it. And then later on, they talk about him making extensive filling notebooks with conspiracy theories in small, neat handwriting. So he's obviously writing down everything that he learned through these emails, and they're dismissing it as paranoid conspiracy theories.
Well, obviously, the police seized all the copies of the stuff. I mean, Guccifer released the paintings of Bush and him in the bathtub and more, so they've got the intel. And so the good news is we know about the Chicago nuke plan. They think we're so dumb they had Hart brag about it 10 years ago. So how many times have I said I think Chicago's the major false flag target with a nuke, Paul? How many times?
Numerous times. In fact, I think there was a plot involving a terrorist to attack a building in Chicago, but the building wasn't even built when the plot was supposed to happen. So it's been in the works for a while. Of course, if it happened, they'd probably blame it on somebody like ISIS, because we had these stories from back in August about ISIS tweeting pictures of threats made against Chicago buildings, like the Old Republic building, which is in Chicago. There was another story this year, again in August, man arrested for making bomb threat in Chicago after he flew an ISIS flag from his car and led police on a chase. So, you know, whether it's going to be by ISIS or blamed on ISIS or patsies or whatever, as he said, definitely Chicago has been a big target since at least 9/11.
That's right. We're putting the CBS News story up about the ISIS plan is being protected by you-know-who, the criminal globalists running our government. It's just a fact. But this also goes to David Rockefeller, Colin Powell, all these top gangsters. Sure, they're in control of things. They've got all these super weapons. They've had all these scientists build them all this, but they don't know how to run it all. They're too lazy not to have nonsense passcodes that nobody can figure out. I mean, I'm not a tech guy, but I don't use names. It's scrambled uppercase, lowercase, you know, gibberish symbols, but they're lazy. I mean, obviously, these people don't uphold any security, any preparations, because they think everyone's totally dumb. But so what? 10, 15% are super smart. So they're operating as if all the 7 billion people are idiots, when there's probably like 500 million people that are as smart as they are. We're just not psychopaths. So I don't know how that shows how all the other technologies and things they've got, we're all in danger, folks. They're green lighting open air pharmacological crops that scientists say will probably kill everybody. You know, HIV in corn, hepatitis in corn, super funguses that could spread through the atmosphere and make interstellar a real reality. The Andromeda strain a real reality. I just shudder at how bad these people are, Paul.
Well, and the point with the passwords, because we had the story last week about the security cameras across the world. Most people never bothered to change the default password. So it's like, you know, admin and then password. So this website has set up direct access to people's bedrooms and living rooms with these private security cameras across the world because people failed to change.
That's right. Was it 300,000 cameras or something? Just so far?
In every country.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Great job.